Hello, and thank you for tuning in. I'm James Cleveland.
And I'm Serena Beck. Tonight, we are having a special back-to-school episode. Many schools in New Hampshire are starting back soon. We are going to discuss some options for schooling that are not well known and show you why we do not need a public school system.
Many people are familiar with homeschooling. Homeschooling is an eclectic approach that is partly structured and partly interest-based. This method allows parents to pick and choose the classes and materials that meet their children's needs according to homeschool.com.
Then there is unschooling, which many are not familiar with. Unschooling was first coined by John Holt in 1977. Unschooling is interest-driven, child-led, natural, organic, eclectic, or self-directed learning. Unschooling is the natural way to learn. This is how we learned before school. School is not unparenting. It is not a free-for-all.
Autodidactism is a word that many are unfamiliar with. Autodidactism is self-directed learning, learning on your own or by yourself. Many adults pursue this type of learning after high school or college, often for the rest of their lives.
Now we have an informative video from School Sucks on the history of public schooling.
When I first started teaching, I spent a lot of time flipping through history textbooks. The events covered in these books always included a predictable set of specifics: the what, the who, the where, and of course, the when. But what almost always seemed to be absent was context, the why, and the how. For example, one thing that I initially found very confusing was the rise of the Third Reich. The books provided plenty of charts and maps and vocabulary words and pictures and timelines. But again, no why and no how. Why were the German people not only tolerant of a leader like Hitler, why did they cheer his rise to power? Why were they so accepting of the atrocities being committed in Germany and around Europe in their name? Why were they so susceptible to the propaganda of Joseph Goebbels? And why were they so short-sighted with respect to the long-term consequences of the Nazi agenda? What had been done to them? If you are a school teacher following a book, the story is simple. It begins in 1939. However, if you are a self-teacher following your own curiosity, you can easily discover that the rise of the Third Reich is a story over 100 years in the making. In the early 1800s, in the Kingdom of Prussia, Germany's geographic and cultural predecessor, the rulers, intellectuals, and elites were determined to solve a problem: the individualistic and capricious nature of their soldiers, who would do wild and incomprehensible things like run away from gunfire in an attempt to preserve their own life instead of gladly sacrificing themselves for the needs of the state. In an attempt to strip out this independent thinking and replace it with obedience and conformity, they devised a system. They called it Schule, and within a few generations, it would change the world. On the surface, the story was that these schools were set up to provide the children of society with an opportunity to be educated, but a closer look reveals almost the opposite to be the truth. These schools were not about actual education, but schooling, indoctrination, processing, molding, conditioning, sorting, and herding children for the needs and desires of the rulers and elites. This school stole from these children their natural gifts, their curiosity, their creativity, their individuality, and replaced them with a blind allegiance to the state and to authority. While in the schools, the message itself might have been subtle, it was heard by the children loud and clear. They didn't have to think for themselves, they only had to trust the thinking of their rulers. The schools perpetuated the very bizarre idea of nationalism. While the children learned that as individuals they were relatively insignificant, they were also being infected with the idea that as a culture, as a collective, they had great significance, and that their culture, their collective, was superior to all other cultures. So much so, in fact, that they were justified in exporting their beliefs to other people in other places. As a result, they allowed themselves to be dragooned into imperial pursuit after imperial pursuit, and they never were able to look closely enough at the situation to recognize how much it was hurting them, while at the same time benefiting those in power. And wouldn't you know it, after an extended period of time marching around and trying to stick the flag in different places, they found themselves in complete economic ruin. Having no grasp of historical causality, they gravitated to the feet of anyone who promised to bring about change and set out on a new course. At almost the same time, they were confused about international relations and crippled by fears of foreign invaders, and gravitated to the feet of people who claimed that they could be protectors. And they accepted the claims of these people that their goal was peace, even if at the same time they waged preemptive wars. And sadly, this blind allegiance to the state and to the fictional collective eventually superseded concerns for their freedom and concerns for their futures as individuals, which is why they were so shamefully tolerant of a slow and steady march toward a police state. A police state that was necessary because they were told that they weren't just being threatened by external forces, but internal ones as well. This is why they accepted things like the Hindenburg's Decree, which took even more of their civil liberties away. This is why they tolerated the establishment of prison camps. It's why they tolerated armed men storming into the homes of peaceful people and putting them behind bars because of their beliefs and behaviors. It's why they were tolerant of school children being told that they should report parental behavior to the authorities. And this failure to value or even understand their own freedom eventually permitted the government to obtain the power to seize and detain anybody they wanted to in the country.
And when they say, "I want my lawyer," you tell them, "Shut up."
Your time is
It
expired.
permitted the development of a slanted, relativistic legal system filled with ad hoc policies in gray areas.
And Manning is the culprit and not the men in the chopper who committed murder. It's a classic case of kill the messenger.
And by the time they realized how dangerous the people in power really were and how much additional power they had seized, there was no political action that they could take to solve this problem. And looking back, I hope you can see that it was not one event or one man or one party that was responsible for forcing an entire society into totalitarianism. It was a process a century in the making. And it began with people being schooled to be stupid. And in the last 7 minutes, you might have begun to develop an eerie suspicion that Americans were schooled to the similar system. It's true. In the 1840s, the Prussian system was imported to the United States by the father of public education, Horace Mann. In his 7th annual report to the Massachusetts Board of Education in 1843, Mann praised the Prussian system, even though he was forced to acknowledge the destructive power that it had on the minds of children. But don't panic. Mann simply stated, if Prussia can pervert the benign influences of education to the support of arbitrary power, we can surely employ them for the support and perpetuation of Republican institutions. So that's good.
I think that video, it did a great job of, like, from day one, you're instilled to be obedient. I think that it's interesting to learn the history of the school system, and that was basically their goal from the beginning.
Yeah, I think that it was great to bring the actual original point of schooling, because a lot of people try to put the good in the idea that these people want to teach you to do well and succeed because they know about those secret ingredients to get ahead in your life, when it actually, in all reality, you really have to look inside yourself to figure out what makes you really learn.
Yeah, I think the reality is school doesn't actually teach you education. It teaches you, like the video went into it, just facts and how to obey authority.
Yeah, it's kind of sad to see how many people think that they're not cut out to do the things that they want to do with their lives because they don't feel like they can handle going to college all the time or whatever. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people decided to just give up and go down negative routes and not try to expand upon their own minds, you know.
Yeah, another thing I don't like about school, you have no choice in what you're actually learning, either as a parent or a student.
True.
You
and
basically have no choice.
Yeah, and half the time you're not even really learning it. You kind of just think, well, this is something that I was put in this building to hear, even if I don't want to hear it. I know that when I went to school, I had to look out the window because I couldn't focus enough on little statistics and things like that that didn't really matter to me at all.
Yeah, I completely understand. I think students learn better when they're actually interested in the material that they're learning.
Hands-on things, experiencing things, going outside, not being cooped up in a building 24/7, being able to expand on your ideas and just explore the world, even though there's not that much left of it. It's claimed by a lot of corporations.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. Like, if I have children, I want them to learn, let's say, a second language when they're young. If you send them to public school, you don't even have that option.
Yeah. There's also the thing of, I went to Waldorf school, which was a private school for artsy people, and they'll talk about, oh, you don't learn to read until you're in, like, 3rd grade. When are you going to learn to read? Well, why don't the parents, you know, if their kid wants to read, teach them how to read.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think education ultimately is the parents' responsibility. Now we have a video from Adamo Freeman's recent trial of the West High School principal's testimony in that case.
The state calls Mary Ellen McGorry. And Miss McGorry, what do you do?
I'm the principal of West High School.
What did you do before that?
I was an employee of the Hillsborough County Attorney's Office, initially as a law clerk throughout law school, and then I was an assistant county attorney.
My job.
Your job.
On about October 4th, 2011, recall getting a telephone call regarding an incident in the cafeteria.
I do.
I want to play for you what has been marked as State's Exhibit 1.
The initial woman voice that you hear is my secretary, Denise Michael.
Were you ever asked permission to be recorded?
No, sir.
Were you ever just straight out told you were being recorded?
No, sir.
Do you know, did the defendant introduce himself in any way?
No, sir.
When did you learn that you had been recorded?
I believe when, I want to say it was a teacher or someone familiar with the case indicated that I was on the copblock.org website.
You testified that you were aware of copblock.org prior to your knowledge of being on the website.
Of your existence, yes.
Did you have copblock.org blocked from the school computers?
I don't block anything from the school computers. That is done by the district administration office, and they have their own protocols. I would presume that that is probably blocked, yes. That would not be considered an educational website, so I would presume it's
To your knowledge, were students suspended or disciplined who wore or brought copblock.org materials to school?
Not to the best of my knowledge. I know that after this incident, the person who videotaped the incident wore a T-shirt that said, "I don't talk to cops, I videotape them," and I asked him to take that shirt off, yes.
Officer DuPont stated in his report that you had stated, if you knew I was recording, you wouldn't have made any comment. Is that correct?
If I knew you were recording me, I probably would have hung up because I generally do not discuss those things over the telephone. I couldn't do it.
In the video, though, it seems, and you testified that it was an accurate recording of our interaction.
I said I believed it was, sir.
Sure. And would you believe that you got on the phone and immediately started the conversation?
No,
So did you ask if I was recording you?
I did not ask. That would not be my duty to ask you, sir.
Did you ask?
I don't expect that I'm recording when I pick up the telephone.
Did you ask that, excuse me, did you ask why I was calling?
I get phone calls from concerned people every day that I speak with.
So you did not ask why I was calling?
No, because my secretary had told me that you were calling about the incident that had occurred in the camp.
So you knew I was calling about the incident?
That's correct.
Would you consider that incident of public information?
Would I?
Public
No.
concern?
No.
So the safety of the students is not of the public's interest?
I disagree with you. I believe the safety of the students was taken care of in this incident.
And would you consider your position at West High School a public?
No, sir, I don't take an oath of office. I am not commissioned. I am a hired employee of the Manchester School District, but I am in no way a public official. I don't meet the statutory requirement that I am a public official.
Can you tell the jury who provides your salary?
I believe the taxpayers of the city of Manchester. I am like everybody else in the city. However, that does not make me a public official, sir. That makes me an employee of the city.
Can you explain to the jury how my recording you victimized you?
Objection, Your Honor. It's the same.
Did me recording you cause you any harm?
Objection, Your Honor.
Did you obtain any loss by me recording you?
Objection, Your Honor.
Well, that was definitely an interesting video.
Yeah, I was.
I was actually at the trial. I think you were there too.
Yes, I was.
And it's funny, she probably would self-describe herself as a public servant. She's serving the public, but she's not a public official, she claims, because she didn't take an oath of office.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that this is what I thought when I went there was she probably went from being a prosecutor to a principal because a principal is a little bit more private way to be a dink face.
Yeah, I wonder if she would, when she was still a prosecutor, would she have described herself as a public official? Like, that would be, because I'm not sure, but not all prosecutors are actually elected. A lot of them are appointed.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot that people let the higher up people do for them. And I think it's sad that a principal would think that the safety of the students was even in her mind, because I consider it more safe to, I have a little brother and a little sister, okay? I consider it a little bit more safe for my little brother to snatch a bag of mine for 5 seconds than, you know, a kid being slammed, being slammed to the table. That just,
Yeah, that's true.
doesn't make sense to me.
I wonder if she would have felt any different if, instead of a demo making the phone call and recording it, what if the father of the student who was body slammed made the phone call and then recorded it?
I don't know. Cop Block is more known, and it's a lot easier to, they leak information about them all the time, you know, so I think it would be a little bit more, they'd be a little more afraid of Cop Block than the parents.
Yeah, it's interesting too. She testified that she is not afraid of the police officer because he is a police officer. Mm-hmm. But if any of us went into that school and attacked a student, we would be in jail.
Right, and I actually have read that the parents are not happy at all with the fact that their kid was slammed into a table, not at all.
The father said something like, no one should be treated in this way. Like, no student should have to go through what his son went through.
She kind of giggled at one of the objections too, and you could see that, she creeped me out.
Yeah, I found it interesting too. She was going to answer the question about how she was victimized, and the prosecutor objected and basically cut her off. Yeah, you got an interesting point too, that she probably intentionally chose to wear pink so the jury would view her as more of a soft side
Or just, you know, the color pink is supposed to be something that makes whoever's in the environment with the pink feel a little bit weaker. And I wonder if she did that on purpose as a
I think it's a
prosecutor.
conscious decision, because I bet you she does not wear pink when she's a high school principal.
Very likely not. She has to seem like she can give them orders.
Keene State College started back today. In honor of this occasion, we will share with you a website called uncollege.org. Uncollege is a site dedicated to self-learning and sharing resources, and a social movement changing the notion that going to college is the only path to success. Dale Stevens is the creator of the site and is a dedicated self-learner and unschooler.
Dale Stevens was convinced in 6th grade that he was not receiving an adequate education. He then convinced his parents to let him unschool and founded the website uncollege.org in 2011. He has gone on to become a Thiel Fellow and in 2011 and will publish his first book, Hacking Your Education, in early 2013.
Well, I actually went to college, and I ended up becoming an accountant, so I guess you could say that I use my degree on a daily basis, but I think I have like 150 credit hours. At least 60% of the time I spent there, I consider it a waste.
I have watched friends go through college and do their homework every night, things like that. I've seen them feel like it was a difficult process. I've seen people enjoying college because they're paying attention to the positives, but I feel like if they knew that there's a lot of opportunity for people that don't follow one state of mind, I guess, there's opportunity to expand.
Yeah, and another thing I was thinking, when I was in college, I spent all this time and money. I could have become an accountant by just going and working at a firm and learning the skill. There was no need for me to spend over $50,000 in 5 years of my life to get a piece of paper, basically.
Right, and you could have, just as easily have been part of a rich family or a family that knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And, then you could have gotten that job and been hired in many different jobs like it. There is a wonderful new podcast targeted specifically to teens called Pork Teens and can be found at porkteens.com. Hosts Zed and Paige discuss interesting liberty topics from a teen's point of view. This is the only podcast dedicated to freedom-loving teens.
Lastly, we will leave you with a hilarious and truthful video from The Whitest Kids You Know.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you very, very much for letting us little kids live here. It really, really was nice of you. You didn't have to do it. And it's really not creepy to have little kids mindlessly recite this anthem every day and pledge their life to a government before they're old enough to really think about what they're saying. This is not a form of brainwashing. This is not a form of brainwashing. This is not a form of brainwashing. This is really the greatest country in the whole world. All the other countries suck. And if this country ever goes to war, as it often wants to do, I promise to help go and kill all the other countries' kids. God bless Johnson & Johnson. God bless GE. God bless Citigroup. Amen.
Very good, kids. Now come and get your Ritalin.
Definitely an interesting video. When I watched that,
Ritalin! Sorry.
yeah, it's so much like a cult. All the chanting and everyone has to do it, and they have like a hand salute, and it's very creepy to me.
Yeah, I didn't have to ever do the Pledge of Allegiance. That made me really happy. I went to private school, and at Keene High School, though, they told me in my first half of 9th grade, that's how long I was in there, they told us that we could or could not we didn't have to if we didn't want to. So me and my friend Molly, we were the only ones sitting down.
Yeah, I went to school in Georgia, and there is, I guess, no opt-out, or at least if there was, they never made it public. So I said the pledge every day for 13 years, I guess.
Yeah, I'm really glad I never let myself do that.
Yeah, looking back on it, it's not something I really envy or want to do again. So I think that video did a great job of parodying. I think I've read we're the only country in the entire world, maybe besides North Korea, where they have children pledge to the government. I mean, it's very creepy.
Yeah, it's sad that we haven't, as human beings, we're not thought of, like, there are creative people, and they're in higher power, and then there are minions and pawns, and that's it. There's nothing in between. I can definitely say that's not true, because I like to create things all the time. So they're wrong on that one.
Yeah, going back to, it's from day one, it's obedience training, because you have to say the pledge. You have to pledge your loyalty to the state. I mean,
everybody's doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's peer pressure too, because you don't want to be the one guy that takes a stand. And maybe you don't even understand what the pledge is, so you just do it because everyone does it.
Mm-hmm. Labeling and stuff happens in public schools a lot, and it's interesting to me to see how many, to see the Ritalin thing on there too, because they are getting younger and younger, the people who are taking Ritalin. It scares me. My mother wanted me to take some drugs. She didn't, say that I had to. I said no. And then we tried some natural herbs that are supposed to give you more energy, which I guess worked, like tea. But,
yeah.
Pharmaceuticals are scary.
I definitely agree with you. They definitely overprescribe prescription drugs to children. And if you're a parent, it's a professional telling you, so you're not going to question it. Thank you for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Join us again next week for another installment of ShireTV for more news and analysis. I'm Serena.
And I'm James Cleveland. May you find happiness, peace, and prosperity.